Masechet Batra Daf Yud Het, 45 lines down. Tashma. We're continuing the Machlok between Abba and Rava. Rava mentioned that person can't plant uh can't plant something next to someone else's property, even if it's not going to damage it yet. Even if there's no hazard yet, you can't even plant it yet. Let's bring a proof. Distance your flax pull from the vegetables, your neighbor's vegetables, or the leeks from your friend's onions, or your mustard plants from the bees of your neighbor. Sounds like it's already there. Sounds like it's already there. It's not there. Mutar. When says it's even if it's not there. When it says not a proof. Even if there's no vegetables, it's asur. Lo samich. The following things are anti each other. Flax is not good for the leek, and the mustard, and the onions, and the vegetables are all harmful to each other. If that's the case, I'm saying the next part of the Braita says, Mishnah says, Rabbi says it's mutar to put mustard next to the neighbor's plants. Because the mustard guy can tell the bee guy, the same way you tell me, move my plants away from the bees, move your plants away from my bees. I could tell you the same thing. You take away the bees from me. Because they're eating my mustard plants. Where it says, it's not most of the hazard question is because the ilos if Talach says you can never put a hazard there. How can you have a case where that the guy's bees are next to your mustard plants if how'd you plant them in the first place? Where it says, we gave this answer before that it's true you can't plant the mustard next to the guy's bees and vice versa, but maybe the cases where you bought the land, the land was bought. I planted my mustard far away from the border, and then I sold the second half of my land, and now the mustard's already there. Whereas the that's the case was the case where we bought it. What would be the halach? What would be the reason of Chachamim that it would say you have to remove it, right? In that Mishnah. Oh, additionally, my time the say, why would Rabbi Yossi say it's mutar? I feel Mishnah Derekanami. In the case of the flax and the vegetables, you can leave it because it was put there legally initially. Or I said the Maravina Kasara Rabbanan Hamim hold al mazik lahita asmo. Very interesting concept that Hamim hold it. It's up to the responsibility of the person who's damaging distance it. Why do I say interesting? Because the other opinion is very interesting. Mechlal, that sounds like the Rabbi Yosef Savar, Rabbi Yosef who argues, he holds the person who's the damagee, the guy who's getting damaged, according to Rabbi Yosef, we hold that it's his responsibility. So if I'm getting damaged, it's my responsibility to put a distance. Versus the Hachmim, who hold the more quote unquote logical ways that the damager. Now the Gemara says Elon and Zakir is Rabbi Yosef's responsibility. Rabbi Yosef holds the responsibility of the damagee. I feel Mishrei Yarakanami. How come in the case of the flax and the vegetables, they should also have to move? Why does he only argue in the case of the bees? Where it says the damager responsibility. I understand the flax and the vegetables, the flax damages the vegetables. The vegetables don't damage the flax, right? Because the flax pool is ruining my vegetables. According to the case of the bees and mustard, I hold the mustard has to be moved because they damage each other. Right? The damaging the plants get damaged and the bees get hurt. The bees don't damage the plants because the bees can't find the seeds because it's enclosed. And the leaves themselves, I don't care if the bees eat the leaves, have the powder, they just grow back easily. That's why Hachami holds mutar. That's Rabbi Yossi holds it's not because mutar. Gemara says inside. We just said Rabbi Yossi holds that damager has to move it. But now in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi says even if the pit is before the tree, you don't have to cut it down. Because this guy can say, I dug in my property, and you dug in your property, and you put your tree in your property. Therefore, we see Rabbi Yossi holds that the damagee has the problem. Right? The damager is putting the thing there. He can say, no, I problem. If you have a problem with it, Mr. Damagee, the damaged party, you move it. Must hold that it's on the person damagee to move it. The guy was getting damaged. So now let's explain the bees again. Udrahim Rabban Kamal is explaining, he's explaining Chachamim, the argument, according to their opinion. This is easier. For me, I hold that the guy who has the problem has to move. The damage. And therefore, in the case of the flax pool and the vegetables, you don't have to move nothing. According to you, the who holds that the damager is responsible. That makes sense according to the flax and the vegetables. The honey is a honey because the flax damaged the vegetables. The vegetables not damaging the flax. That's why you make sense that you're saying the flax has to move. But according to you, at least, in the case of the mustard and the bees, they damage each other, let them move. Say, لا مش حد بتعرف هذا عبارة we're not worried about it because there's no damage going on the way. Anyhow, next part which I said, the launderer's pool. You can't make a launderer's pool within 3 feet of the wall. That 3 is referring to a case of a soaking pool. You just drop the item into wash. Regarding a scrubbing pool, you have to have arba'amot because scrubbing will have a bigger splash zone and be able to cause more damage. But it says the launderer's pool has to be 4 amot. This must be according to Nachman that Amish is referring to soaking pool, which is 3 explain this concept via a question. Mishnah says, the launderer's pool has to be distant 3 Brayta says 4 amot. Our Mishnah is referring to soaking pool, only 3 Kam min milyan, and the Brayta is referring to scrubbing pool, which needs 4 amot. هي بريدة أبيض مثل الهدية الله يمكن حكم استفادة من حمتان كتلة الشاخيم هي explained it clearly that the only time you have to move it away for 3 is if it's a laundering soaking pool but not a scrubbing. Our Mishnah said you have to if you're digging the pit, you have to do 3 and apply lime to the walls. So by the way, what does it mean? This does that mean you have to do the lime in addition to the distance? Or maybe you could do 1 tefach away, no need 3 and then you could just lime it. Where it says Pshita the obviously it says you have to apply the lime also them because maybe if you really think that means either or, therefore they should have just mixed the cases of the Mishnah. The Gemara says it has to be together because if it was either or, then they should have mixed the cases of the Mishnah together. Meaning the second part of Mishnah said if it's olives or manure, etc., you can put the distance or the lime. But if it was either or in both cases, then they should have mentioned the whole list of stuff and then said you have 2 options. Either with all these items, either distance it or you can put the lime. So from the fact that it did not separate it, sounds like our first case has to be both distance and lime. Gemara said not a problem. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe it is either or. And the reason why we have to separate them is to teach you there's different types of damages, like we mentioned earlier. The first case is there to about moisture damages. We mentioned the second case is to talk about heat damage. Tashma. Rabbi Omer says, "Sell soft soil. Each guy can dig in his own side. This guy distance is 3 and put lime. The other guy puts lime and 3 the reason why you need both is because it's soft. A little bit if it wasn't soft and not. Gemara says, it sounds like even if there's not soft soil, you don't have to you do have to put lime even if it's not soft soil. وبعدين بس تحتاج soft soil. تحتاج تستخدم يعني given the بعدين تعرف فيك you might think that you might need more than 3 تفاحين because it's soft. 3 تفاحين is enough and you have to put the lime. Next. Olive, manure, salt, and stones. You have to keep distance and lime. What items can you wrap hot foods for before Shabbat? What can you not wrap hot foods before Shabbat? You can't wrap with olive pits, manure, salt, lime, or sand. Wet or dry. Our Mishnah, the only difference is we mentioned stones and not sand, and over there they mentioned sand but not stones. Or it says why? The reason is because you don't usually wrap food with stones. The Gemara says, but once again, is it normal to wrap food with wool or purple wool as a wrap? The Tanya Brita says, if you wrap it, it's mutar, but it's a sur, it's muset. So we see that we're mentioning items that you don't usually use. So how come we don't mention stones? The concept is one will teach the next. What does that mean? The literal translation is one will tell him the friend from Eyob. So what does that mean? Tana hachas like our Mishnah mentioned the stones. What in the whole applies to sand, like mentioned by Shabbat. Tana atam chol what in that Mishnah you mentioned sand, and therefore the same would apply to stones. The Gemara said, if that concept of mention one, not the other, you should have mentioned all in one spot, and you don't need the second Mishnah. The second Hada bin Abayida can only mention one of them. I mentioned all 6 or 7 in this case, and mention one, the other one, and then trying for the rest. Why are you playing around with one of them? Right? The reason why by Shabbat it doesn't mention food, it doesn't mention stone by the food, because these type of stones can break the pot. Therefore, you don't use it. The reason why you don't mention Sam Ravishna is because sand heats when it's warm. It only cools things when it's cold. Therefore, our sand has no effect by itself, by a cold wall. But Rashi mentioned sand in the list, his list. Tomorrow says Hatam bin Matuna. It's referring to what sand? Tomorrow says, okay, then I'm going to Matuna. How come our Mishnah also shouldn't have mentioned wet sand? Tomorrow says, our Mishnah already mentioned the irrigation channel, the water channel. Therefore, we need to mention. Okay, we also mentioned 2 different types of water channel. We mentioned irrigation channel. We also mentioned the launderer's pool. So we say we could mention wet sand also. Tomorrow says, mentioned both cases for a reason. Maybe you only mentioned the irrigation channel, but that's something that's permanent. And once it's there, maybe you could leave it there. Maybe by the launderer's pool, maybe because it's not permanent, you don't need distance. Let him just do something else. When you only mention the launderer's pool, you might think that maybe because the water stays there. That's why you have to move it away. Maybe the channel of water that's passing through running water doesn't make distance. Therefore, mention both cases. Next, the seeds and the plow must be distant 3 tvachim from the wall. Zraim, typically mishum mar harisha. Why didn't I mention seeds in the first place if you can't plow there because of the plow? So mention just plowing. You don't need the cases of seeds. The Gemara says, our cases in the Mishnah referring to seeds that you're putting with your hand. You don't need the plow. Therefore, you need both cases. Maharisha. So once we mention the seeds, but you need the case of the plow. Typically, mention the seeds. And you don't need the case of the plow. The Gemara says, Behodesh the not is referring to the case of the guy who's plowing for the trees and not the plant. Right? It's plowing around the tree. So let's say non-seeds plowing, like plowing to help with the tree. That case is that's why the Mishnah says you can't plow. Next, the typically Mishum Mayam be reason you can't plant it because seeds is because you can't water it. Therefore, it's a sort of the Gemara said it's our case tomat Eretz Yisrael, which Hashem takes care of the planting, and you're not going to put water there. Therefore, you have to make a separate case of the seeds. Amen.